Hello and welcome back to another One Piece video. So today I have Reiju for you guys. Honestly, Reiju is a very high roll deck. Obviously you depend a lot on your HEGs in order to apply pressure to your opponent. And when you're able to combo him off with Porsche, it's really hard for your opponent to get tempo back on board, just because a 7k body on turn 2 is really hard for people to deal with. And for most decks, when they do get rid of them, if you're able to find that second HEG and cheat them out of your trash, it's pretty much game over from there. So I think, generally speaking, Reiju's in a pretty decent spot. She's not a bad deck per se, but obviously due to consistency issues and how strong the top decks are, I just think that HEG is not enough. Like, for example, for Purple Black Luffy being able to pump his leader up to 7 every turn, it's really hard for HEG to be really impactful, especially with Gum Gum Giant in the meta as well. So this is my take on Reiju. I wanted to keep it as consistent as possible, so obviously I'm playing the 8 Reijus. The Search Reiju also being a 2k is really nice, and then the Draw Reiju obviously is very staple. And then the only other Vinsmoke that I'm playing is going to be HEG, just because he's the best one and your deck really revolves around him. And so Reiju is just there to help us find the HEGs, and then everything else is to play around him. So the only tech cards I included was the 2 Gamma Knives. I think Gamma Knife is really strong for purple right now, just because when you go up against like green decks or decks that play tall bodies, this really helps you get rid of them, especially since your Dawn tends to be very low in this for this leader. And then I play the 1 Ragnarok as well, just because sometimes your leader or your opponent plays something like Katakuri, the purple Katakuri, or just something that they haven't turned sideways yet. The Ragnarok helps you get rid of them, and only for 5 non. And I prefer this over Red Rock, just because this also has a Dawn -1 effect, and so it triggers your leader ability as well. So for example, on like your 7 Dawn turn, you can play Ragnarok, draw a card, and also play the Tony Chopper right after. So that's something that I really like about Ragnarok, and that's why I just have it as a 1-of, because it doesn't really come up that often. And then obviously the Judge is in here. I tried him as a 2-of during testing, but I cut him down to 1 just because very rarely do you ever need this card. You really win the game off of your HEGs, like I said. So that's enough of the deck. Let's just hop over to some gameplay. Okay, so first game, we're just going to be going up against Red Shanks here. Shanks is obviously one of the more popular leaders of the new starter decks, and so more likely than not, you're going to run into him, especially at a locals level. So going up against Shanks, we obviously want to take away his first, or take away his second, I mean. And it's really good that we have the adult and the baby HEG, just because being able to evolve him and put pressure on early is going to be really big in this matchup. And so I play down the Reiju here. I don't believe I pop the effect though, just because I do want to be at 4 Dawn next turn, and be able to play down the HEG if I wanted to. Yeah, it's really important not to Dawn down too often, just because you do want to reach it to the late game, and have enough Dawn to work with to finish off your opponent. I think a lot of Reiju players, as soon as they see like a baby and the adult, they try to use the Dawn down effect as soon as possible. But yeah, the 6k swing, we obviously just take that one, just because in this matchup you definitely want to save your counter for your bodies first. I think I just play down the HEG here, and then I use the Reiju to draw. And then starting with a 5k lead here. I debated not dropping the HEG yet, but I didn't want to get punished with like a Marco or something, just because I do see that he's playing more of like a control Shanks build. And a lot of control Shanks players are playing that 5-drop Marco, so I didn't want to play right into that. So 5k at lead takes his leader ability, and then we should be able to use this HEG here to be able to swing 7 at lead. And then as Reiju, especially in the early to mid game, I found that you really want to stay around like 4 Dawn. 4 to 6 Dawn is super nice just because you're able to play out your baby characters and then also able to play out like Tony Chopper at the end of your turn. So at 5 Dawn here, he totally could Building Snake Red Force and Marco if he had it. But I wanted him to commit that Building Snake just because him lingering there just means that late game when he wants to remove a body, that Building Snake will guarantee that he can. But it looks like he just wants to poke out of resources or poke us to demand resources first. And so I just give him the 1k here, giving him that Reiju just because playing down adults is not very efficient. And yeah, especially with Tony Chopper in hand, I really want to play him down so that we can catch up in Dawn here. So I start off with a 5k swing with the Reiju, hoping to get the Lucky Rube block, but he gives us the leader ability. And then here, swinging in 6 with lead now, demanding 2ks or trying to get that Lucky Rube to use his block as well. But I believe he decides to counter this one. And then obviously we're going to pressure in with a 7 with the TCG here. And he still doesn't want to block with the Lucky Rube. So we were able to put him down to 3 already, which is really scary on his part. Just because if we do find like another TCG, he's going to be in really big trouble. And yeah, so I just end my turn by searching, trying to find more answers in the later turns, and then playing down the Tony Chopper there. So now at 7 Dawn, he probably wants to play like a Beckman here. And that Beckman, especially with the Red Force, is going to be really strong. But he actually didn't, yeah, definitely a misplay on his end. He didn't use his Red Force to pressure my TCG there. Yeah, there was actually no reason for him to not kill our TCG there. I suppose if I had like another baby TCG in hand, I could see why he did that. Right, just because if he popped the TCG there, I could use the Sora and get the baby TCG back, in theory. But he would have to, yeah, he would have to force me to use my resources to do that, so. He just pokes in 5, I take that one. Just because I only have 2ks in hand, I don't want to over counter yet. Just because I'm going to be turning my TCG sideways again. And if he were to swing into him, I want to be sure that I can counter out of it. But yeah, swinging in 7 here. Trying to see if he can block, or if he will block with the Lucky Rube finally. And he doesn't. He opts to leader ability and 2k. And then we just rip the Ragnarok here to get that Beckman off the board. And then thanks to the Tony Chopper, I'll be able to get that Dawn right back. So I think he's deciding whether he wants to block or not here. But definitely would be inefficient for him to block just to pop a Tony Chopper, right? So we were able to Dawn back up 1. So next turn we're going to be at 9 Dawn. And being at 9 Dawn with Reiju feels really good just because you typically Dawn down a lot. And having all this Dawn to work with obviously feels really good. So especially with Reiju 2 not having stage, I found that it feels really bad. So maybe I should try to find a way to more consistently get the stage. But I did put in like as much draw and Reijus as I can in the deck, so yeah, he actually uses Red Force this turn. Definitely should have used it last turn. I think he just forgot about it, just because when I use stage, I'm actually not used to having stages in a lot of my decks, and so I forget to use it all the time, especially on the sim. So here, I think I actually just played down the raw Ichiji, if I remember correctly. I could also use the Sora here. Yeah, I think I end up using the Sora actually, and then playing the Ichiji that way. But yeah, I definitely misplayed here. I should have pitched the adult Ichiji. Oh, and I did. Okay, this is not the play I was thinking about. But I ditched the adult Ichiji here, and then able to use the Porsche effect in order to double develop. And now we're able to get another 7k body on board. And so here, I think I just pressure an 8 and a 9, I believe. So an 8k swing. And then a 9k swing. And then since he already used his leader ability, this would demand 2 counters, or 2 cards out of his hand if he wants to counter here. And so luckily for us, he actually does counter with 2 2Ks. And so that tells us that I think his last 2 cards are bricks, just because he took the 8 at first. And then now dropping down the other Uta here just tells me that he either has only 2Ks in hand, which then we should be swinging minimums, or 2 over obviously, or he just straight up has no counter. So he finally uses his building snake here, being able to reduce the Ichiji down to 4, and then swinging in 7. That's just going to be an easy block with the Tony Chopper. Or do I give him 2 2Ks here just because he has... Yeah, I think it's better to give counter here versus blocking, just because he still has 6 Dawn to work with. So in theory, he could swing 10k with the standing Shanks and then 11k with the Lucky Roo. And I want to make sure that this Ichiji stays on board so that we can keep on applying pressure. So he swings in 6 at 4. So now is a good time to block just because he only has 2 more swings on board. So I give him the chopper here. And then probably swinging with that Shanks, right? And I think he ends up swinging at life here. I debated taking it just so we can get like another card draw, but I didn't want to get too low in case he had like a dragon in hand or something next turn that we wouldn't be able to survive. And so here I just start off with a 6k swing at the Lucky Roo, kind of just tearing apart his board now because he only has 1 card in hand. So if he decides to really counter and try to defend his board, yeah, he's gonna be left with like no more cards in hand, right? But here I think the Shanks is just way too tall to try to pressure, and so I probably just swing a bunch of 8s and then play down the Reiju in order to play the adult Reiju from the grave. Yeah, so first swing, starting at 8, he either has to block or it just has like a event in hand that he can combo with his leader ability. So here I give him a 7. I'm just trying to get that last card out of his hand. I don't really mind too much if these connect or not, just because we have enough pressure on board. And then here, a 10 at lead, leaving up the 2 Dawn so that we can play the Reiju afterwards. And I think that is such a crazy mechanic where we're able to play down the Reiju and just draw 3 cards. So now we're back up to 6 cards in hand, and there's actually just no way for him to lethal us with what he has on board. So he plays down the KO Shanks, swinging in 7 at the Reiju here, or 10 at 7. Obviously he should have red forced again, but we did have enough counter if he did anyways, so wouldn't have changed. this game here. So I start off with a 7k at swing, or a 7k at lead, just because that would eat up a card out of his hand. And then from there we just swing 10-10 and it's guaranteed lethal since he has no Dawn up for an event. So yeah, either way, just 7 at lead now, just because he only has 1 card in hand. And so 2 7s should do the trick here. And yeah, we were able to take this game away from the Shanks player. Obviously, that first turn with his backman, he should have been able to get the Reiju or the HG off the board. But just looking at his draws, we probably would have been able to pressure him out anyways. Reiju obviously being able to refill her hand so efficiently. Yeah, it just made it really hard for him to pressure our board. Okay, so I got blue, yellow Nami. So obviously this is one of the more popular decks, and I don't think she found a lot of success yet in the West, but obviously as the format goes on and people find more optimal builds, I really do think that in the future she's going to find a build that is going to be very, very strong. So she starts off with a Hiyori and then a 6k at lead. Probably just gonna 2k this, right? Just because if you can counter with 1 card to deny Nami the draw, I think it's really important to do so. And then this turn, I decide to swing in 7 here, just because if I were to play down the HG, I would be doing the same thing. I would be only able to swing a 7k and a 5k, but because Nami's effect allows her to linger the 2k from her leader ability, you would essentially only be swinging 7k anyways. And so I used this turn to try to dig, and luckily I did, because then we found the stage which combos perfectly with the HGs, being able to throw them in the trash to find another card, and then bringing them back with the baby HG. So unfortunately he had the pudding, and so our HGs got shuffled back into the deck. But I think I just get rid of the searcher here, just because if I didn't find anything, I wanted to play the other Reiju there. And then yeah, being able to just find as many HGs as possible is super nice. The only thing we really need now is the adult HG so that we can start pressuring her. And this is what I'm talking about with Reiju, where I feel like she's a very high roll deck, in a sense that if you have HG, it's really hard for your opponent to deal with him, right? If you have the combo pieces. But if you don't have them, it's going to be a struggle trying to keep up with their board. And so here I used the Reiju to get rid of that pudding there. And then desperately trying to look for Reiju, but just not having any luck here. I think I just discard, yeah, the Black Maria here, and then using the Reiju so that we can draw 2 cards here. Yeah, it's still not able to find ourselves in HG. It's really bad. So I think I end up just poking in 5 just to get a card out of his hand, and then playing down the 4-drop Reiju again to try to find ourselves the adult HG. And then we finally find him, and so next turn, definitely just going to try to pressure as much as we can here. So yeah, able to trash the adult HG. And then trying to get a counter out of his hand here. But he ends up giving us a Kiku, so doesn't matter too much. And then actually, this is a misplay on my end. I didn't know we already had an HG in the grave. I should have checked. I just could have sworn that I never threw him in the trash. But even so, we were able to double HG here, and then put a lot of pressure on him just because we were able to get that Captain Kid off the board there. Really good play on his part not to waste his counter trying to defend out of it, just because then I would just poke my entire board into the Captain Kid to try to get him off. And then swinging an 8 at lead, Obviously we have to counter out of that one. I believe I just used my Dawn to swing in as heavy as possible. So obviously a 5k with the lead goes first. And then we're probably just going to be swinging in a bunch of 7s here. Especially since he has a blocker up. I don't want to overcommit Dawn into a big swing. And so here's another 7k. And then I probably just pop one more 7k. Or could be an 8k and then drop the Porsche, just because even though the Porsche is not going to give us a target to cheat out, her Dawn down ability is going to let us draw. So I was hoping that she could find us a Tony Chopper off the search and be able to draw into another counter, but at least she was able to draw us the Tony Chopper, so that next turn we'll be able to have a blocker on board. So yeah, we're looking really good here. So I start off with a 7k at lead. There's no way she could counter out of this, so she either goes down to 1 or gives us the Trafalgar Law there. And then now she goes down to 1 life, or no cards in hand with 2 life, and that's just really big for us. So it's really just a math game at this point, and we should be able to end the game here. So just counter out of her 7k swing. She only has 1 card in hand, and so a 7k is always going to connect. And then I give her another 7k. Yeah, Reiju able to keep up with blue, yellow Nami. Obviously, this is one of the harder matchups, just because any leader able to pump themselves up to like 6 or 7 just makes it really hard for Reiju to really poke in resources, because Reiju is really tough to deal with when she's able to bombard your leader with a bunch of minimum swings. So last game I got for you, we're gonna be going up against green, yellow Law. Obviously he's gonna be really popular again because he found a lot of success in the East recently in the most recent CS. I think there were like 2 top 8s. But yeah, obviously with the new support in the Bonnie deck, having the new Kid and Killers allows him to essentially have 12 searchers in the deck, which is insane. And his leader ability being able to bounce them back to his hand, I can see this leader getting a lot of value from these cards. So my first turn was really standard stuff, just dropping the Sanji, finding some combo pieces, and then using the stage to get rid of an HG, throwing that in the trash. I think I pitched the 4-drop Reiju here just because we have the baby Reijus, and so yeah, countering with the adult Reiju is just like free counter at that point. Yeah, so I think we just start off with a 2k into the Bonnie, see if he gives us another, if he gives us a 2k, or does he want to give us the blocker there. Obviously he's just going to drop the Bonnie, and then instead of playing out the Reiju, I actually decide to develop the Ichiji, just because the earlier we can get that 7k body on board, the harder it's going to be for our opponent to answer. So yeah, especially at 5 Dawn, they're always going to want to drop that Cavendish. And then I think he's just going to do like a blind leader ability here, and being able to bounce that Luffy back to his hand, and then next turn just going to be able to get another draw. So luckily for him, he was able to find a blind Bonnie, and I guess he didn't use the Bonnie ability, so maybe he didn't have anything good to put in life, but that's really good for us. That just tells us that he won't be able to really combo off next couple turns. So I use the Reiju in order to find another Reiju, refilling up our hand really big here. So yeah, poking in 5 at lead, and then probably going to be swinging Ichiji for 7, and then playing down the Sanji and Chopper to find like our future turns. So yeah, good thing Ichiji got us the Bonnie off the board, just because against this deck it's really scary when they start getting like 8 cost Captain Kid. But yeah, hopefully by the time they have kid, we'll have like a Gamma Knife ready so that we can really deal with that right away. But yeah, we're in a really good spot now. So with the Tony Chopper up, it means that he can't really just load up and kill our Ichiji on the board. But yeah, here, luckily for him, he's able to find himself a Bonnie. And then playing down the Luffy, probably going to bounce the Luffy with his leader ability to play out that Bonnie and stunning our Ichiji. But yeah, a couple of 6k swings coming our way. I'm probably just going to block this next one. Or I think I take this next one just because we're at 4 life. I don't want to get too low on hand count. Especially since next turn we're going to be poking in a lot of swings. Yeah, so I think I have an Ichiji engrave, and I do. Lowering the Cavendish down to 4. And then I just try to poke out 2Ks out of his hand. And so I think I start off with the Reiju on the board. And then I think he wanted to force us to commit all of our swings into the Cavendish. I personally don't agree with this, but yeah, I think he definitely just wanted us to stay away from his life. So I just play his game, just swinging 5 into the 4K Cavendish. And then giving us another blocker, I decide to just load up our Sanji, swinging in 5 again. And yeah, he ends up letting it go anyways, so now we're in a really, really demanding spot. And I don't really see a way for him to come back into this game here. And then the Gamma Knife came just in time, just because this turn, if he decided to put down the Captain Kid, we have an answer for him right away. And then, yeah, like I said in the beginning of the video, as you can see, I forgot to use the Germa Kingdom stage there. But I think our hand is pretty loaded. Definitely ready for upcoming turns. Yeah, so at this point he just loads 2 onto his leader, bouncing his searcher once again. But I think with 2 cards, yeah, with only 2 blockers up, I can't imagine he'll be able to really come back from this, right? So here, yep, just pitching the adult Reiju, grabbing the 2K in hand. And then I probably just Gamma Knife here. Just trying to see if I can get his Law to turn sideways. So I swing in, start by swinging in 5 into 1. Just because if he turns that Trafalgar Law sideways, I'll just have another body to swing into. So yeah, another 5 at lead here. And then a 7. And then I believe I just end the turn with probably like a Reiju and a Tony Chopper. Just because I don't want to Dawn down if I don't have to. Yeah, so I just use the Reiju, grabbing another 2K. And then Tony Chopper to ramp us back up. So that next turn we'll have plenty of Dawn to work with to push for lethal here. So he does play down the Searcher Luffy again, playing down the new Trafalgar Law to be able to heal a card or heal a life with a card in his hand, and then just bouncing that Luffy to get that Cavendish on the field, I imagine. But yeah, at this point I think there's just way too many swings on the board, especially since whatever he's swinging at with that 2 Dawn attached, I'm going to be able to counter out of or use the Tony Chopper to block that swing. Yeah, if he were to swing with this leader, I would definitely start off with the Tony Chopper, just because we want to force him to turn that law sideways if he wants to get a body off the board. But we just have too many cards in hand, and just too much counter for him to really combat our board. So yeah, that's basically it for the video though. Yeah, Reiju's really fun, honestly. I think in a meta where not all the top leaders are like 6k 7k bodies, I can see her shining in the future, especially with the new support. She's a lot more consistent, and you can definitely find your pieces a lot easier. And I feel like she doesn't really need all of the different Vinsmoke family members to be really strong. I'm finding a lot of success just playing like Ichijis and Reijus in this package. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.